Today on Derby Debunk, we look at dreaded post position 1. Does the new starting gate impact the draw as much as it used to? Can horses from post position 1 get the start like Citizen Bowl did last year? Getting first jump, bowling his way out, controlling the tempo and the pace, just ultimately fizzle out and finish 16th? Or is Looking at Lucky going to be the classic post 1 position? Getting a terrible start, shuffling back, getting completely cut off with no chance to do anything other than maybe, finish 4th and complete the superfecta. Today we look at post position 1, post position from hell.
Perhaps the greatest editing job known to man.
I love it. I love how serious it is. And then I'm just watching it like, this isn't bullshit. Look at this. Look at this turn the rail, but it's so cool. And anyways, hey, it's good to be with you. This is like our first, had this idea about doing videos, doing more content together because we've just been having so much fun with it and there's so much to do. And it's that time of year, right? It's the time of the year, Kentucky Derby, where everyone just gets a little stupid about horses, right?
Yes. I mean, we're stupid about horses all the time, but people get extra stupid about nonsensical things. So one of our favorite parts about doing this, our first thought was to debunk some of the myths around the Derby. And one of the big myths, at least the one we'll start with, is post position 1.
That's a big one. That's the one that everyone, because you just imagine, right? We'll talk about some of the horses from the past and things like that. But if this year's favorite, right? Commandment draws the rail or Renegade draws the rail, that's all you're going to hear about, right? Is the rail, the rail, the rail, the rail. And so, we wanted to just kind of start there because it's always a thing that comes up when they do the draw. No one wants to do it. It's all the drama of who's going to get it, all of that. And we really wanted to look at it from that analytical standpoint of is it the rail alone or is it is it these other factors going in? We were looking at, going through the book and looking to the past of horses that were 99-1, horses that were just longer shots that probably it didn't matter where they were. They could have done the parking lot. It didn't matter. They could have had a head start. It might not have mattered. So we wanted to look at it from that standpoint, but really because the rail, the gate, I shouldn't say the rail, but the gate has changed since 2001. So we're going to look at the last kind of 5 years. We are going to go back and look at this one here. But just kind of looking at those last 5 years since the gate changed and looking at those individual horses in terms of trips, in terms of who those horses are as individuals, their running style, and what other factors, and ultimately kind of lead that with a little bit more clues as far as this year. But the replay that you just pulled up, and this is a little bit before your time. This is 2010, and it's kind of around the time that honestly where I kind of started getting playing a little bit more seriously, playing tournaments and things like that. So I remember, and again, this is just little baby horse player Emily, but I remember around this time, everything was Looking at Lucky's a horse to beat. He has the rail, and it was just that was everything that you heard. And then everything that you heard after was if he didn't have the rail, he would have won. And I've kind of memory hold it on my own. I really haven't gone back and watched it, but I was actually watching for another horse, strangely enough, in here a few days ago. And then when I saw your intro video, I'm let's go back and watch it. So before we hit, are there any thoughts so far about anything before we kind of dive into Looking at Lucky?
I'm one of those suckers that believes that I won't bet the rail horse in the Derby. Probably the wrong opinion. And as we were talking before we started doing this, it's if Renegade gets the rail this year and he's 4-1, I'm not playing him. But if you get him at 8-1, 4-1 seems to be the consensus price of what he'll go off as. But if you get him on the rail, going to be higher than that, won't be the favorite, right? And I think there's enough lore around all of this that you'll actually see the price be different, and as it should be, because if you get the 20 pole, also should be different because you do have to cover more ground. And we'll talk about Mystic Dan here in a few minutes. And it's I don't know that you could have gotten a better trip. I think 90% of the horses that ever ran in the Derby would have won if they would have gotten that trip that he got. So this is the old rail, or the old gate, I should say, where they put them together. So definitely also maybe an HD in 2010, but it's horse racing. So maybe this was horse racing's version of the HD. But you're going to go off here in a second. I have it muted so we don't get completely taken off of YouTube at some point. So it takes.
I mean, we can actually keep the sound up. I don't think it's that crucial in terms of like what we're looking at anyways. And so pause it real quick. Just like, sorry, I'm going to be doing the pause it the whole time as the replay watcher, but we can even take it back a little bit. You can kind of see, looking at Lucky, I mean, part of this too is probably the course conditions. Another thing that we don't have, like, I don't remember past performance wise, so there's going to be some kind of blind spots in there, but off a little bit slow, kind of loses their footing a little bit from that inside position. So now we'll just kind of consider. So far, kind of normal horse stuff, kind of the same as everybody. So then establishing position is able to actually, gets a little bit shuffled there, but still hasn't, like, again, it's kind of normal horse racing stuff from the inside. I'll see that in a field of 6, right? So pause it. Ooh, take it back a little bit right before that contact. So like from right here, pause. This is a good position. It's almost kind of Mystic Dan trip at this point, right? It's like you have forward position, you're on the inside. So far, not too crazy. But then,
the
horse, from the clouds.
You can see he's wearing red there.
They get bumped, and this is considerable contact, like without question. But now, watching this is like, I don't necessarily know if that's like because they drew the rail or they happen to be inside, right? So we can kind of go back a little bit more, kind of rewind it a little bit. There's like this 4 horse, it looks like a 4, that's on the inside as well. And, they're not, is that already happened? Did we not go back far enough?
I did. Every time I go, it's slowing down and like.
Okay.
Like it's been rewatched 100 times or whatever.
So the 4 has position, right? It is not too far from the 1, right? Is able to get position, is on the inside and avoid everything that had happened to looking at Lucky from the rail, right? So kind of keeping that sort of in mind there.
And all that trouble he got, he's now not necessarily last, but 18th or so going to the first turn, which never where you want to be in the Derby. I mean, 22.6 or 22.6 is not super fast, but also not in the screen. So like
it's not on the screen. And also too, again, I think it's important. We don't have a lot of context, but a horse that isn't a closer, right? Looking at Lucky's like not a closer. It's a horse that has tactical speed. So not only being last, but at this point being taken out of your running style. So those are things to constantly think about in terms of forward handicapping. I don't know. Are you able to kind of pick him up or put a cursor over?
He's not even on the screen. He's still
still off the screen.
Still off the screen.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of, you're saying like their race was over at that point. I personally think it's more of one of those things of like, it's the trouble that happened early on. And I don't necessarily, it's like, I don't think the rail is ideal, but I don't think that it's solely the rail at that point. I think if that horse doesn't come over, and there he is just kind of splitting horses, now moving to the outside and running on. If he gets the trip where that 4 horse was, based on this run here, that probably, was the winning type who actually ends up going on to win.
Exactly. So this video is not going to be the greatest for us to rewatch, but I think people know enough about this trip and kind of covered what we were going to talk about with the old rail and all those fun things. So we will look starting in the 2021 is when they had the new rail or the new gate, where I'm going to pause it here, but you can see the gate is now just one gate, which is much better for everybody involved and doesn't force the one hole to actually be looking on the inside of the fence. So it makes it a lot easier for that horse to actually break. So you can see a much better view there, where it's like when they had the two gates pushed together, the one was almost like inside the inside gate here, which was almost an impossibility. Now, going to be better. This was 2021, which was, do you remember who this was?
Known Agenda had the rail that day, who did end up going off at 6-1. I had the chart pulled up. I'm not going to fumble with it, but he was like one of the top choices, and coming off the Florida Derby win. And I just went back and watched that just in terms of like context of like what type of running style. And watching it again, I was like, oh, that's why I didn't like him, because I didn't really love his Florida Derby. But so far in the past, 2021, he's going to have the rail here. But his running style when he won the Florida Derby is he's not really a horse that has a lot of gate speed, but he sat behind the first flight and then had first run and finished it at drive. So not a horse that's a front runner, not a horse that's a closer. More of that stalking type trip, which again, we're kind of like talking about running styles, what type of running style might be good or bad to have from the rail. Maybe this one is a little bit tricky, right? Where you don't have enough tactical speed to get position from the rail, and you don't lack early speed completely, where just dropping back and saving ground isn't that big of a deal. So it does turn it into more of having a rider who's like going to be able to react and adjust, because you're not going to be on the lead. You're going to have to literally jockey for position early on. And so I think we'll see that here. Do you remember where the Medina Spirit's 8?
Medina Spirit won, so that's the 8, and then the 7 ran second. So he did get, as you were saying, the trip and the style he actually runs is about the worst possible style for having the rail, because he wants to be mid-pack, and being mid-pack is terrible if you're getting crunched down by 19 other horses coming at you. Right. So he didn't get a terrible run. I mean, he broke.
He got cleanly. A good break.
Yep, break all by himself. The problem was he then, he's fine, right? I mean, he's
getting so far. I mean, at this point, it's a little bit of contact, but again, it's 19 horses. There's others that are in the picture that are also getting a little bit of contact. Gets shuffled back on the inside, but I think that just goes to his running style. He's not a horse that has the tactical speed to establish position. So again, at this point, just saving ground, probably a little bit further back than what they wanted, but otherwise, I don't necessarily know his position would be that much different if he was in post 7. Maybe he'd just have horses like inside, outside, and like a few lengths forward. But again, still saving ground in there.
Yep. It seems almost like this is the best place for him to be. Is like you'd prefer to be closer, but if not, at least you're saving all the ground. And so,
I mean, so far there's nothing. There's other than getting shuffled back, which, like we said, maybe that would have happened anyways.
Yep.
This trip is fine.
So I'm pretty sure that's him there on the inside.
Yeah, he's in the green.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, he just doesn't seem to be firing, if we're going to be completely honest about this one.
I mean, it just, again, I'm glad I actually ended up watching that Florida Derby, because it's just kind of his running style. He's just kind of like, he's just that grindy, kind of plotty type, doesn't really have that quickness. So this position is probably, like you were saying, is great for him, because he's able to save ground. He's just going to grind, just doesn't have that gear to be able to quicken like you need to win the Derby. So all in all, I wouldn't say that the rail impacted him before. He's probably bet, like, from the connections, from winning the Florida Derby, probably a strong speed figure at that point. And I remember Medina Spirit that year, who had, I think his race record, he had like all 1s and 2s, right? But in terms of finishing, but Medina Spirit hadn't really run that fast race. I'm trying to just, again, go off memory, but I don't think he had like those big, like Bob Baffert type speed figures. And that was part of the reason that he was the odds that he was.
And he ran second in the Santa Anita Derby, which is, we were talking again before, like I cashed on Medina Spirit. It was one of my favorites because I wasn't betting a whole lot. And I was like, I'm going to put $100 on Medina Spirit, and it won at $26 and paid $26. Like, I don't think I've ever been happier in my life than cashing in that Derby. So I don't think there was much in the rail there with the new rail. Like we were saying, like, it's just, he got the trip he wanted. nobody
didn't
seemed
have-
to pass anybody. Like Medina Spirit just went gate to wire. But it certainly feels like, I don't know that you have much more you want from Nona Jin in that race, right? It's like,
Yeah,
got what he got and just not good enough. And
just
never
not good
good.
enough. Exactly.
So going to the Rich Strike year, I think this was Mo Donegal, who was 10-1 and was a fairly, I don't know, favorite, but
I thought he was very logical. He's a horse I like quote unquote picked that year. And in part, kind of being a little bit cagey because it was the rail, and I really thought that the rail wouldn't hurt this horse at all. Mo Donegal just is a closer. He tends to run him off the pace, so expecting it's not going to impact him, right? He's not going to have horses come over on him early and try to get out in front. He's not going to be trying to establish that mid-pack trip that maybe Nona Agenda was looking for. So I wasn't bothered by that at all. And so we'll watch the replay and just kind of see if it was the rail. Yeah, it gets off slow, saving ground. But that's the position expected him to be in.
Yep.
Like so far, everything is as drawn up.
Yep.
At this point.
And better than all that is you also use all the pace that you want, right? To be a closer in the Derby is like Rich Strike, who ends up winning, is coming. I'm pretty sure he's in the white here. I should have looked beforehand. But yeah, but he's in front of Mo Donegal, but you figure Rich Strike is 80-1 and Mo Donegal is 10-1, and you're getting about as good of a trip as you could ask for if you're Mo Donegal at this point.
Yeah. He's in the Donegal silks, the green and yellow.
So I mean that's one of the problems. Like it took that long to see him come around the turn more than anything. Like and that had nothing to do with the rail as much as like that's the type of horse he is. And
and there was expected to be an honest pace this year, which there was.
Yeah.
Which also was another reason that just kind of made sense for him to get that trip.
Yeah. I mean, Rich Strike is further out, but not much in front of where Mo Donegal was at that point. So
they're pretty much side by side.
I mean, at this point, if you gave me Mo Donegal at 10-1 and Rich Strike at 80-1, I'm taking Mo Donegal, right? Like this far into the Derby, I would even have less want of Rich Strike and more of Mo Donegal. Like I didn't like Mo Donegal because of the rail, because I had that belief and still kind of do. But seeing him, getting this,
I think this is, if you pause it right here, this is where Mo Donegal, it gets lost just on the cutoff and the turn. That's the way it is. But it was one of those decisions, right, where they're going to make their late run and they decide to move outside, which I'm not a jockey, but that seems to make sense, right? Because you're going to have to weave through traffic.
Yep.
Now, that's exactly what Rich Strike did. And that ride from Sonny Leon it's artistry. It is. I've watched it so many times, like overhead, every angle. It's really phenomenal. I mean, he finds every pocket, every seam, never loses momentum. It's real mastery. But Mo Donegal just took the path that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yep.
You save like a turf trip, right? You save ground, you angle out in the clear, and you kick. And at that point, Rich Strike had first run. All right.
So Mo Donegal is out here, not on the rail any longer, but like if he's the horse, he's got it, right? Like he has every reason to be able to do it.
Yeah. Just Rich Strike came up inside, coming outside, losing ground. And that's it. It was more of a rider's decision, if I think it was Jose Ortiz, right? Jose Ortiz was on the
Irad Ortiz was on.
Irad Ortiz.
Yep.
It was just one of those things that like maybe he makes a decision to try to, weave traffic and stay inside. Maybe, but that's how it worked out.
Yep.
One of those things that you also consider with a closer, right? When we talk about not just the rail offering some price compensation, but also with closers. We've talked about that many times on the stream, right? As recently as Tejano Twist, like it's a closer at a short price. You need so much to go right, so you have to consider everything. Yeah.
Yep. And so then the next year was 2023. Hit Show, who was a bigger price
Also a closer.
But also kind of get the trip you'd want it's a horse you'd want on the rail, right? If you get to pick who goes there, you're like, yeah, that's the type that you want. Mage is the winner of this one.
But we can also see, Two Phils is post 3, and we'll see post 3 reoccurring in the next year. But 3 not too far away from 1, right? Yep. And Verifying, who might have been a little bit suspect that year. So tough to say that it was post 2 for Verifying, but yeah.
Wish you would have told me that when I bet a bunch of money on Verifying, because I was a big Verifying fan. But back in my old days, I
said he was a little suspect. So I think he had some hype going that year.
Yeah, well, I may have been the leader of the hype train. Okay. But 2 Verifying breaks cleanly, but the 1 gets even better of a trip because Verifying broke so well and sets the pace. Had you told me that Verifying was going to set a 21 second and could have won a quarter horse race, maybe I would have thought better of it. But we'll go back here and
Hit Show breaks a little bit slow, and they use for position.
Yep.
In here, so they're actually bringing him a little bit, maybe even closer to the pace, establishing position. But it's a little shuffle there, but otherwise.
About as good as
a great spot for a long shot type horse, right?
Yep.
Who's got a late kick, a little bit of a dirt kick pack. Another thing to consider with horses that have the rail, if they're not on the front end, can they handle getting dirt kicked in their face? Because that's probably going to happen, unless you're Mystic Dan. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see that actually. They take Hit Show off the inside right here. So that might have been a factor of that dirt, just saying like, he's kind of not liking this, and here's my opportunity. But again, this is a very skillful ride now.
And really, I think going back and looking at what Hit Show wanted to do, he doesn't want to be this close. And he doesn't want to be this close on a pace that's going so fast, because this is, I don't think it's the fastest pace they've ever had, but it's probably the top 10 fastest, if I remember correctly. It was an outrageously fast pace, which led to what we'll see here in a minute, which is basically the collapse of everybody but 2 Phils. He's about the only one that holds on.
2 Phils, man. What a race.
And so Hit Show is here on the outside.
Yeah.
And Mage is coming. Hit Show is not. He's not bad. I think he ends up being.
No, he runs a good race. Very respectable, all things considered. Mage gets the trip. 2 Phils gets the tough beat. But Hit Show, does he end up? I think he ends up getting fifth. Yeah. But again, I mean, you wouldn't say if anything, maybe the rail helped them in that case, because they're like, okay, we're inside. We don't want to be too far back. Now we've got to kind of use an established position and put the horse in the race. I mean, I think Manny Franco deserves a lot of credit for that ride. I think that ride was absolutely excellent for a horse that was, 27-1, a long shot in the field. I think he gave that horse every opportunity in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we'll go to Mystic Dan's year, where you had the Sierra Leone, who was the 2-hole, finished second. So yes, it's not the 1, but the 1 was Dornoch, who ends up going on to win the Belmont and being a pretty good horse. I don't know how much of the rail we'll see here. So,
but he gets off. Dornoch gets off a little bit slow.
Yep.
From the inside, kind of breaking out sideways a little bit.
And then Mystic Dan says, okay, you want to come out? I'll go in. And he takes the rail. So Dornoch is in the pink. Mystic Dan is in the black with the green cap. And they're kind of side by side or right in front of each other.
Yeah. I mean, Dornoch's probably, of the horses that we've watched from the rail, is probably getting the worst of it.
Yep.
But some of that is self-inflicted, right? You break a little bit slow from the rail, you're kind of asking for a little bit, trouble's coming at that point, right? And that's pretty much what happened. He gets shuffled back inside, and from there, it's not a comfortable trip. They give up position, they're tight behind and between horses. Whereas you look at Mystic Dan, I mean, this is the cleanest trip I think I've ever seen in the Derby.
Yes.
He's saving ground. You know, I made a joke. It's like he's got the social distancing. He's got no horses in front of him. He's got no horses on the side of him. He's got no horses behind him.
He saves every inch of ground. Like, he couldn't be closer to the rail. All these other horses are at least one out. He's like, nope, I'm going to be on the rail. Where Dornoch is now two back, or a horse length behind, horse in between them, but weaving back and forth and doing all the things you don't want to see. Whereas Mystic Dan's just like, nope, I'll just stay right here on the rail.
Yeah, and that position for Dornoch is tough, right? Because you've got horses that are trying to move forward at the same time. You've got horses that are backing up, right? It's that point of the race, and you're sort of in that tough spot where Mystic Dan probably knows that this one horse in front of me is going to back up, and you just hope that they move off the inside, which they did, and gets that clean rail run. Dornoch ends up moving outside, I think, from outside of horses, just kind of that shuffle, and just kind of like moves outside almost by default.
Yep.
So.
And just nothing left. It appears he, not going to win, not going to get in the top 5. So he just kind of eased him up on the way.
He's like, we're gonna point to the Belmont.
Yeah, exactly.
And mission accomplished. Yeah.
This was last year's, and this is Citizens Bowl, and I think this is sort of the dream trip from a rail horse. It's
for a rail horse that has early speed.
Yep.
Right. We haven't really seen at this point a rail horse that is a confirmed front runner.
We showed this as the intro, but it's like he pushes all the way out, and now he's in the 4, 5, 6 path, and kind of gave up the rail at that point. I mean, you see horses now filling in the gaps that he's left, and he's just on the lead. And at this point, that's the horse. If the horse wants to lead, you can't get a better start than that. Now, if he's good enough, he should have no excuse. And as we all know, he's not good enough.
He's not good enough. Yeah, but I mean, at this point, you're right. Like that was clearly the plan. You can see it right from the jump. Is like, we're going to establish position, and we're going to get off the inside, and by any means necessary. So not only do you establish position and you get off the inside, but 5, 6 of your rivals are taking the worst of it, and they're getting trips in that process, right? So. Yeah, you got what you wanted. You have everything at this point, eliminated those horses. You're on the lead. You're now inside of rivals, even though you're not like totally pinned to the rail. But just not good enough.
Yep.
Not good enough.
And I mean, at this point, he's in the lead still, and about as
getting bumped right now only because he's losing ground.
Right.
He's not quickening prior to that.
And as it turns out, that whole group of horses, I'm pretty sure all of them fade back because they also went too fast. So, I mean, I think that has more to do with all of this than anything else, where, he's the 2 is there now. Now you see the rest of them are starting to make their move. And so Sovereignty.
But again, even in terms of the other front runners, they stayed on a little bit better than, it's just not a... But in terms of like just showing, like, if you are a front runner and you have early speed, I would prefer that you don't take out half the field, like in order to get there. But it really shows that if you are quick enough to get to the lead and you're on the inside, you can do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just don't create the drama in order to do it. But it does, so I think that's a great kind of sample, because it not only just shows the modern rail, but the different running styles, the context around it. I don't think any horse necessarily lost because of the rail. Dornoch's trip, obviously the most kind of like impacted by it, in my opinion. But it does bring up a couple things to consider, and this is kind of like maybe where we'll kind of end, of just kind of like what to take from this, right? Is because we go into this year's Derby and things to think about. I think running style is key. What type of running style does this horse have, and how is that going to impact their trip from the inside, right? Are they a front runner enough that they're going to be able to clear and not only just go on a win, but like, even if you don't, I guess you have to look at it from that standpoint too, that like, even if you don't consider that horse as a contender, you still have to consider them as a piece of the puzzle, right? If they are a front runner from the inside, you have to consider a Citizen Bull type scenario where they are going to go, they are going to ensure that early pace is honest. The other thing that we saw, like in the case of Dornoch, in the case of, I think it was Note Agenda as well. Yep. Horses that have some gait issues, that they tend to break a little bit slow, or they kind of lose their footing out of the gate. Horses are creatures of habit. You can go back in their replays and, is this something they do all the time? Now, if they don't all the time, it doesn't mean they're not going to do it in the Derby. Weird things happen, but typically that's at least going to tell you, this isn't a horse that I have to worry about that with. Oh, this is a horse I do have to worry about that with. They do break a little bit slow, and then they have to rush up. Or they break a little bit slow, and then that's their run style, that they're a closer, and they're gonna come from behind. They're gonna get that Modonigal type trip.
Yep.
Or in the case of Hit Show, which again, I mean, I'm so glad we watched that replay. I'm like in awe. I think it's so good. Like, just being able to like kind of take that horse enough out of the running style to like get position, like how that's going to impact. So I think those are kind of the points, right? Like,
yep.
The running style from the rail, right? Gait issues in terms of like their ability to establish position from the inside. And then obviously the biggest one is odds, right? Like, if it's a long shot from the rail, you could probably toss them for 5 other reasons that don't have to do with the rail at all.
Yep.
Now, the point that you brought up was like the favorite from the rail.
Yep.
So if you want to kind of like expand kind of on that. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a horse like Renegade this year, where he's going to come from further back. I don't know that you mind him being on the rail. He gets to save the ground, especially horses. I think Renegade's going to be fine for the distance, but if a horse may have distance limitations, you can see that the Mystic Dan trip where he gets to save every inch of ground and wins because he ran 1.25 miles plus 30 feet, whereas the other horses are running 1.75 miles because they're so. I don't think the rail is actually as bad as I wanted it to be, and how I came into this idea of like the rail is going to be like you're going to toss them. Now, I don't want Renegade at 4-1 on the rail. The same way I don't want half of the horses and I want double the price or thereabouts for most of them. So there's a huge difference in will they win and can you toss them because they're on the rail versus can you bet them? And I think that's always the question. What we always we talk about all the time is like, yeah, I'll bet any horse if you give me 100-1 on it, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, give me a chance. Whereas in the Derby, I'm going to need to get extra compensated for that. But at the same time, I'd want to be extra compensated for the 20 hole.
Right. And the thing is with the rail is that I think that you do get compensated. And if I'm looking at a horse like Renegade, it does remind me kind of, let's say we're, also just playing this, like, what if Renegade draws the rail? But he's got that Modonigal type look to him, to where Modonigal ended up going off at 10-1. If he had drawn the 5, he might have been less. That there's definitely that added value of people being like, I was going to pick him, but now I'm not, and that does kind of impact your odds. And maybe you see that, but I think you would have to consider the odds in terms of trip, like we saw with Modonigal. It really did come down more to trip and rider decisions, which does happen with closers, and especially from the inside, is that you're going to have, we've seen all those replays, all those horses start backing up. Somebody starts coming over, and you have to figure out how to bob and weave and to get around. Again, it's not impossible, but you must consider that in terms of value. Even when you have like the quote unquote best horse, it's because they're a closer. They're still going to have to pass at least 15 others, at least, if not more, it's going to be a hurdle.
Most of the time, the best horse on the day wins, and it's because they get the Mystic Dan trip, right? Like, I don't think anybody would ever say Mystic Dan's the best horse when it comes to Forever Young and Sierra Leone, who are clearly going to do much, much better than him. But on the day, he got the best trip, and he won because he got the trip.
Yeah, and the more I think about it too, and the more just like watching races and even just watching these replays right now, I don't think it's honestly. It is different than a regular day, but you still see a lot of the same things, right? There's still a lot of these trips that come up that happen on the day in and day out because of those horses that they are who they are, and they kind of like will, create those type of scenarios. And I think that's kind of like, so we don't I know both you and I like love this, and we can just like ramble on and on forever. But you know, to just kind of salvage our audience to kind of save theirs, I would really look at it from that standpoint. And we have the 5 trips maybe as like a really good, or the 5 years in terms of like rail horses and other horses to kind of analyze this year. And regardless of who you land on, like which kind of horse are they like? Are they going to be like a Dornoch horse who has a little bit of gait issues? He's not, you know, he was projected to be a front runner, wanted to be a little bit closer to the pace. Like, does this horse kind of match up to that? Are they more of a renegade Mo Donegal, sit back, try to save ground and hope they're the best and just can produce that strong late kick and, you know, no one in their way? I mean, I feel like the Mystic Dan trip is the most outlier of them all. Yeah. I mean, just to really not have any stress, any pressure, and then by contrast, like all your main rivals having trouble, you know, which compounds the fact that you have a favorable trip, right? Because you need both of those things to happen in order to beat 2 very good horses on that day. But yeah, I think that's kind of a good point. Is there anything else you learned? Anything else you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big part of that, I think, is if you are the Citizen Bull type that gets the break and you're in front, and that's the type of horse that they traditionally are, you don't mind the rail. If you're a closer like a Sierra Leone or, you know, in this case, Mo Donegal, you can still win from the rail. You just got to be the best on the day. I still don't want to bet the horse that's the 1, but if you're going to get compensated properly for it, which you typically do because it does get overblown, I think it may actually be value in the 1. And it may just be that, you know, I think what we've really learned is the positioning of it is going to be the key. And if you get that position, you're the kind of that second flight of horse, I think is kind of what you want. So you want in, you know, this year's Derby, I would kind of be okay with Commandment getting the 1 hole because he's going to be able to create his own trip, wants to be somewhat closer and don't need to pass all of them and save every inch of ground. So I don't want Commandment in the 1 because I want to bet him, but also maybe I'll get
that might be the only way that you can get a fair number on him is if he does draw the rail, because he'll be one of the favorites and you'll at least get 1 extra point, right?
Yep.
That you might now. Like Further Ado, he could be a tricky one from the rail, honestly. Because he's had kind of those, and we'll talk about him maybe in one of the other video series coming up, some of the ideas that were floating around as far as like prior horse for course angles and things like that. But he might be that horse that does kind of struggle from the rail. We haven't really seen him have to rate behind horses in big fields where he isn't much the best, and he's not like confirmed I need the lead front running type. So I think I would definitely be considering a lot of different scenarios of like, with this horse in this field, with that running style, how does he win? Like, how is he going to get that trip? And I need to draw it up. I need to see that outcome 3 different ways. If this happens, does he still win? If that happens, does he still win? If this and that happen, is he still going to be able to work it out? You know, playing out all those different scenarios, which brings on, to bring it full circle, it brings on the crazy of this time of year. So I think that was good. Should we?
I think that covers the gist of what we're talking about. So I think we will do a couple more of these. You know, I want to do 20. I don't know that we have time to do 20 because we have a couple weeks to go, but we'll get this one out and we'll see how that goes and we'll go from there. So thank you, Emily. It was, as always, a pleasure.
Awesome. All right, everybody, enjoy.